So while this methodology worked well in the past, defining a market these days is often difficult and controversial. There have been two important shifts affecting how markets are actually defined. So the definition of a market is getting blurrier. Why? Technology and globalization. So the new way that we measure a degree in monopoly power involves detailed analysis of specific markets and companies. So this detailed analysis consists of coming up and estimating supply and demand curves. That the firms proposing a merger face. And then they're going to build a statistical model that estimates the likely outcome for consumers. So this new way is focused heavily on consumers, right? Which kind of brings us back to the origins of economics and Adam Smith in 1776. So Adam Smith, coming off the writings of David Ricardo, talked about how, yes, there is this distinction between workers and capitalists, but at the end of the day, if we can have policies that are impacting consumers positively, that's going to have the largest impact, because regardless of if you're a capital owner or if you're a worker, you're a consumer, right? Try to consume without being in the market, without having any land, it's impossible. So they build this statistical model to look at how things are going to be for consumers if this merger goes through. The relative success of this new way is very much coming into question, because this new way has resulted in a lot less antitrust regulatory activities. And so specifically, when we look at tech startups and things like that, right? A lot of tech startups are monopolies because of the fact that they just bought out their competitors when their competitors were up and coming. Difficult to ascertain the demand, and I mean, just doing this is art, right? It's part science and it's part art. Figuring out the supply curves and the demand curves is not definitive. Different economists, different finance people are going to come up with different supply and demand curves. They're going to use different statistical assumptions. So in a way, we went from something very black and white, right? Four firm concentration ratio. That's what it is. The Herfindahl index, the HHI. That's what it is, right? You can't really fudge those numbers. I mean, you can kind of start to pick apart the definition of what a market share really means within this particular industry, because different industries, you can kind of zoom in on an industry or zoom out on an industry. But for the most part, it was a very cut and dry kind of situation. Now we're getting into, there's art in this part, and there's art and assumptions in this part. So it becomes much more malleable and subject to greater interpretation. than those old ways were.